Hello, FGL world. Simple and crazy case. Emily got in a fight, an assault, against Nancy, and she broke her tooth. What's the story over here? Does she have to pay for an implant to replace the tooth as a payment for the damage that she caused? When it comes to damages in Jewish law, the Talmud lays out five categories of damage that would potentially all be payable upon a specific type of damage caused to another person. First one being nezek, the physical damage itself. Second one being tsa'ar, the pain caused. The third one being ripui, which is the medical expenses incurred, And shevet, fourth one, anything that the person loses out of an income, lost wages due to not being able to work, disability. And the fifth one, boshet, which is the shame caused by the incident. And not all cases of personal injury are going to incur all these payments, but the person who caused the injury will be responsible for any of the five that apply to the specific circumstances of the case. So how do we calculate things like nezek? How do we calculate the damage? So if the assault caused irreparable damage, so Emily caused irreparable damage to Nancy, for example, such as the loss of a limb, that's not what we're talking about over here, we would estimate how much a person would theoretically pay for a slave with that limb, and then the difference would be made from there, and that's how much would be paid. The Code of Jewish Law also addresses the case of a tooth, specifically saying the following line: if a person caused another person to lose a limb cannot be replaced, he's required to pay all five forms of damage. Then he says, even if he knocked out a tooth, he's required to pay for everything, because it is impossible for a person who lost a tooth not to get sick, or at least a short amount of time, and although a tooth can't be healed, the surrounding gums need to be healed. Therefore, in other words, that person is required to pay the medical expenses that would be associated with healing the gums. So considering nowadays a new tooth can be implanted, does the person who caused the injury have to pay that in? So we have to consider this in terms of two of these categories of damage: the category of the medical and the category of nezek, the first category of damage itself. So the commentaries explain that when it comes to a transplant or an implant, it's not considered a medical expense, because medical expense only requires the person who caused the injury to pay the medical bills incurred in healing damage to an existing limb, not to supply the person with a new one. So that's category A. We can't get them on that. In terms of the second category, really the first category, nezek. So the question would be, we've explained the damage generally estimated based on the person's theoretical devaluation in the slave market, which for a tooth would be really minimal if the person was missing it. We still have to consider whether that person would be obligated to pay. If the person damages somebody's belongings, for example, in certain cases, there's no way to repair the damage, then that person's required to pay for that repair, even if the cost is actually more than the actual devaluation of the individual. So one could suggest that if there's a way to repair the damage, then that's exactly what Emily would have to do in this case. The challenge here is the issue that we don't really have judges in the Jewish court system who can make these valuations, because we don't have the level of rabbinic authority, smicha it's called, which is something that we're lacking in our generation. Without a temple, hopefully one day we'll be able to get back to that full establishment of the Jewish court system.